Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be talking about The Flash Season 4 Episode 1, and we're going to be talking about the episode as a whole. And obviously this is the Q&A video, so I'm going to be answering 10 of your guys' questions. And sorry if you can see my mic, but obviously I need to. It's a bit hard with the setup, I'm trying to figure that out, but hopefully I can get that figured out within the next few weeks. So yeah, so the first question comes from Ams Kavana, and he says, do you think everything that Barry was saying the first time he came out the Speed Force actually means something, as in it could help them with the Thinker? So I wouldn't actually say that the things that he actually said once he came out the Speed Force actually were really relevant. I would actually say that it was more just gibberish, and like I said this in my review, it just didn't really make sense. It was just rhyming, it didn't really have any proper meaning, and to be honest I don't think they're going to carry that thing on. I think that was just an episode 1 thing. The next question is the Thinker from the future. So the Thinker is a character that is really cool, and he's from the comics, and in the comics he's not from the future, so you would have to think that he's not from the future on the TV show. He does look really advanced, and you're like, maybe he is from the future, but I don't actually think he's from the future. I think he's just super smart. Apparently he's been described as the smartest man on Earth, and obviously he's got some sort of power, and obviously his thinking cap is going to help him, so I think that's why he's so smart. So I don't necessarily think he's actually from the future, if I was to be 100% honest with that. So moving on to the next question, it comes from Jennifer Tran, and she asks, wasn't that lady the mechanic that we saw talking to the Thinker? So yes, that was the mechanic. Sorry I didn't include that in my review. I just covered sort of the main points, and I didn't really see that as too relevant because they were such a small part of the episode, and the Thinker is more important than the mechanic. Basically the mechanic is the Cisco, but for the Thinker. So she basically makes all his gadgets and sort of makes everything smoothly run. So moving on to the next question, it comes from XX Clutch B Swag, and he asks, my question is, will Barry stay the same speed as he was running in 401 for the whole season? So yes, it does seem like this is going to be a permanent change. So I think I'm going to make a video about him improving his speed whilst he was in the Speed Force in the next coming days, so maybe on the weekend or something. But it does seem to be that he's going to keep that speed, and it does seem like it's not just going to be a temporary boost of speed, and it does seem like it's going to be like really legit and proper. So moving on to the next question, Evelyn Deaton asks, will Barry still be writing symbols throughout season 4, or will it just be in episode 1? So it's just in episode 1 he was, you know, a bit scrambled from being inside the Speed Force, living his life over infinity times over, as Grant Gustin did say. So it does seem like he's not going to be doing that because he looks sane, even though he's different. He's, you know, reborn, as they said. But yeah, he's not going to be writing those symbols all the time. So moving on to the next question, Libex asks, how do you think Caitlin is able to control her Killer Frost side? So we saw it in season 3 at the end, where she was, you know, Caitlin Frost. She was like a mix between both of them. And it does seem like her Killer Frost persona is not actually that bad, and it's sort of just her brutality and her evil side of Caitlin that emerges. So it does seem like Caitlin's the good person, Killer Frost is the bad person, but Killer Frost is not a killer. So you shouldn't really call her that, but I think that it's just naturally evolves so that Killer Frost is not actually a proper villain, and then Caitlin is actually more in control of her icy persona. Moving on to the next question, Tiff is having a crisis asks, how do they explain Barry's absence from the CCPD? So that's an interesting question. I did cover that a while ago, and I think that they've obviously come up with some excuse that Barry's been away. Maybe he's taking like a hiatus over 6 months, he's traveling or something. I think that would be the most logical explanation, but like I don't think they're actually going to, you know, wrap that up. I think that's just going to be sort of a plot hole throughout the seasons. So I think that would be the best way to explain it, with him being away for a certain amount of months and coming back to work. So something like that. Moving on to the next question, Entertainment Source for Life asks, hey, was Barry stuck in the Speed Force for 1,000 years? So that was just an explanation. They were like, we don't know, Barry could have been in the Speed Force for like 10,000 years, 1,000 years, whatever Caitlin said. She was just coming up with some theories, and no, I don't think Barry was in there for 1,000 years. I think that he was just sort of looping over and being taught by the Speed Force, and I don't think it's essentially going to be like years, and I don't think they'll actually explain it because Barry doesn't actually remember anything from there, and I think that's just going to be another plot hole, to be honest. So I don't think he's been there for 1,000 years. I think he's just been there, you know, looping over and over and learning lessons from the Speed Force. So, moving on to the next question, Oliver Nedeloff asks, why did they reveal the Thinker already in the first episode? So, the reason why they did this was obviously mainly to hype up the fans. And I think it's a really good idea that they did do that, because now we know why the Samuroid was a Samuroid. If they didn't reveal the Thinker, we wouldn't know that the Samuroid was being controlled by him. That would be left in the air. So I think with him doing that, it obviously makes a lot of sense for episode 1. For the villain of episode 1, and I think introducing him later is sort of a bad idea, so they can get onto those storylines knowing that the Thinker is sort of controlling and trying to get the Flash. So the last question comes from Jamie Fletcher, and he asks, why does the Thinker want the Flash? So that is moving on from the next question, very linked. And my theory as to why the Thinker wants the Flash is to be able to control him, because he doesn't want the Flash dead. Like, a lot of villains want the Flash dead. And with him being able to control people in the comics, hopefully he can do that on the TV show. He obviously wants to control the Flash. Obviously he has so much power, both of them, but especially the Flash has so much power. And with the Thinker, the smartest guy alive, being the fastest mind alive, controlling him, would be mad, and that would be like the ultimate villain, literally. So anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoy this Q&A video. I've never done one of these before, and it's really awesome to answer you guys' questions. So remember, every week on the Flash reviews, Supergirl reviews, leave your questions for the previous episode, so I will do these in the next coming days. So I should have a Supergirl Q&A video out either later today or maybe tomorrow. I just didn't have time to do it yesterday. I was very busy with the Flash videos. So yeah, anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.